Hello and welcome back to the Haven Homestead Podcast, where we learn and grow together on our way to living more sustainable lives. My name is Chris, and this is episode 53. Today we're going to be talking about zones and continuing our permaculture, intro to permaculture topic. So Lindsay and I just got back from the Philippines. We were there for 2 weeks, trying to help, see the country and do good wherever we went, visit people, helped sponsor some kind of missionary work sort of things. It's such an amazing place to visit and really makes you thankful for what you have, that you're, here in America, that you have the things that we take for granted. And it's nice to be back, but it was an awesome vacation. Lindsay really, really enjoyed herself there, got to try a lot of new foods, and of course, I had lived there when I was younger for 2 years, so we were able to go back and visit some of the people that I knew, and it was just such a great opportunity. Everybody was so welcoming and so kind, and we were able to go up to the northern Philippines and see the Banawi rice terraces that have been there for a long, long time, and it was just an amazing, amazing trip. I wanted to do a mobile podcast about maybe some ways that we saw sustainability in the lives of the people that live there all the time, of the local people. And I think that we might do that on the next episode. Lindsay went to go pick up the kids. Her mom was watching them for the last week that we were gone. My mom took the first week, and then her mom took the second week. Lindsay went to go pick up the kids. So she is not here for this episode, but I think on the next episode we might talk about some of the things that we noticed in the Philippines, practical sustainability solutions. So before we get into this episode, I want to remind you, it's been a little while, so I want to remind you about our website, which is havenhomestead.com, where you can see our store for our little handicrafts, or you can see pictures from our farm, or you can read Lindsay's blog, or you can find all of these podcast episodes that we've done up until now on the website. Please consider supporting us at patreon.com, patreon.com, patreon.com/havenhomestead, and that is where we can get supported for making this podcast and keep the podcast rolling through any of the financial things that might come up. We don't get very much from there every month, but what we do get helps out in making this podcast possible and helping get the word out of sustainability and helping other people become more sustainable. We also have a YouTube channel. Every time we post an episode, it shows up on YouTube, and that's another way that you can listen. And that is The Haven Homestead, or just Haven Homestead on YouTube. Facebook, we're Haven Homestead 2009. Instagram, we are The Haven Homestead. And Twitter, we are just plain old Haven Homestead. We didn't post pictures while we were gone for security reasons, so that people weren't coming by the house when we're not here. We had a woofer living here, and she just recently moved on. So our woofing accommodations are open again. If anyone wants to come out here, stay at Haven Homestead, and learn more about sustainability from us. So let's get into the episode at hand, which is zones on the Intro to Permaculture. So on any site, anything that you're designing, whether it be where you live or you're designing it for money or whatever the situation is, there's typically 5 zones. We'd like to break them into 5 zones. Zone 1, or Zone 0, I guess you can say 6 zones if you count Zone 0, but that is the center of the activity. So if you're looking at it from an aerial view, you'll have a house, and that is usually Zone 0. And the Zone 0, and as the zones go out, as the zone number gets higher, you'll have fewer visits per day to that area. So it's really divided into how many times you visit that area. So a Zone 0 is the center of the activity, like a house or a barn or a shop or a place of work or, something like that, where you're there every day for a lot of the day. In this zone 0, you might have your garden, like right outside your kitchen, you'll have your kitchen garden or your herb garden, and there you will have the most intensive plants, the most intensive designs, because there you will be, you go out every time you leave the house and every time you come back in the house, you'll be walking past those spots. So you can have some plants that might need a little more care, and those are the places that will be taken a little bit better care of, because that's what everyone will see when they come to your front door. They'll see your herb garden, and they can be a little more intensive planting. You can also, if you're thinking about doing trellises or maybe small dwarf trees or any of those sort of things, that might be a good spot to put these things really close to the house, inside the house zone of 0. Then we're going to go out to zone 1, and that is where you're going to have, and some people could argue that the kitchen garden is going to be zone 1. So once you walk out the door, you're already in zone 1, and that's okay too. But zone 1 will be the places that you're going to visit on a regular basis, multiple times a day. And then zone 2 is going to be, you're going to visit them fewer times. So zone 1 might have, more of your kitchen garden. Maybe you can see it outside your kitchen window, but it will be a little bit more intensely managed than a zone 2, but maybe not like you're going to be squirting it with a squirt bottle, to mist the leaves in the house if it were, inside a potted plant or on the deck, for instance, or on the porch or on, something like that. This is also another place you can go ahead and put those trellises, and some people might only have a zone 1, a zone 0, and a zone 1. Say if you live in an apartment and you have a balcony, that's your zone 1, because you're going to be out there all the time. If you have plants out there, at least you should be out there. The best fertilizer is the gardener's shadow. So the more time you spend in the garden, the more healthy your plants will be. If you only have a balcony, then that's okay too. You won't have to worry about some of these other zones. You can also, make it on a small scale. Maybe you can have a zone 2 that has a rabbit in it or something like that. Something that you only visit twice a day to feed it and check on it. You feed it in the morning and check on it in the evening and make sure it has enough water or something like that. But back when we're talking about zone 1, this is also, you can also put some dwarf trees. You can put water tanks. You can put some of the things that you might need for the gardening close by, maybe like a tool shed, a little tool shed for gardening tools up close to the house. Maybe your greenhouse, maybe even your clothesline. That might be a good spot to put the things. Maybe your pile of wood on zone 1 as well. And then we're going to move to zone 2, so you're getting a little bit further away from the house. And this place you'll still visit quite a bit, but here you're going to have a little bit bigger bushes, maybe some little bit taller fruit trees, maybe this might where you put maybe a few little building materials. Like I like to think of bamboo as a building material, because bamboo is such an amazing plant, and I like to grow it for making supports for plants and furniture and things like that. In the Philippines, they use a lot of bamboo, and it's a very valuable resource if it's well maintained. Some of the structures that you might want to have on in a zone 2 might be something like the terraces of for raised beds, or maybe some ponds or something like that. It's getting a little bit more wild, a little bit less manicured as you go out a little further. You're also going to probably irrigate these portions of your design, whereas you get out a little bit further and these things won't be irrigated, won't be as intensely managed. You might also have chickens or rabbits inside this zone too. So these are things you're going to visit at least once a day. Now we're going to go into zone 3, and this is kind of getting into a little bit more wild of an area. Every area is getting a little more wild. So we go right into zone 3, and these don't have to be concentric circles or evenly spaced or anything like that. They can be totally wobbly, and you can have a zone 4 come right up to the house, and you can have, a zone whatever, wherever. It doesn't really matter. It's just that it's about how often you're in those areas. And every design is going to be different. So in the zone 3, that's where you're going to have a little bit more wild orchards, or wild trees, wild fruit plants, or this might be where you might throw your seed balls to make just kind of wild, free range for your chickens and your sheep or whatever. Could also be where you raise your main crop, because you don't have to be out. If you're, say, we're going to grow loofah this year, we're going to try to grow loofah this year. If you have a crop of loofah, you don't have to be out there twice a day every day. You can go out there once a day or every other day and just make sure that everything's going well, that not all your plants were eaten by bugs or animals. Or you can, as long as at first you'll want to go out there quite a bit, but after they start growing and getting bigger, you can kind of wean off how many times you visit. You have to visit them all the time. Out here, you're not going to irrigate quite as much, and you'll probably have more animals, like I said, like some, your meat animals, and so they'll need to be watered. But at the same time, you don't have to water every single tree and every single bush like you might in zone 1 and possibly in zone 2. Then we're going to go right into zone 4, which is going to be semi-managed, semi-wild. So you're going to be putting like your nut trees, and you're going to have some big trees that might be good for timber or might be good for the woodlot, that you're raising or you're growing things for your future needs and heating your house. Or maybe you'll plant some potatoes out there, or I don't know, something you can kind of forage for, that you're just going to plant them in different spots, just kind of wild. And you can go out and get these and forage for these things that you've planted, if they've survived. If they haven't survived, it's not a big deal. But if they have, then that's great. And this might also be somewhere where you can find deer, or you can find other wild foods. It might be also a place where you could plant some native edibles out there, just kind of interspersed, how they would be found naturally. And then right outside that would be zone 5, and zone 5 is totally unmanaged. It's kind of the place where you go out and you just sit and watch the plants. You don't really touch it. It might be a place that you could forage for wild stuff if you wanted to, but it's pretty much pristine. So you leave it for the birds to make their houses in, and it's a place for you to learn how to manage your other spots, because really we want to mimic natural systems. So this is a good spot to learn what the natural systems look like in your area. In the book here it says, in this area we are visitors, not managers. In this way, people like to put things into boxes, classify everything, and I think that the zones really help us kind of put it into a manageable spot. So, you're thinking, okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can do that. And if you're just remember what goes where, then you're going to start knowing what needs to go there. So you'll be like, oh, I'm in zone 3. This is going to not be quite so managed as a zone 2, but out here I'm going to have my my animal pastures, because the animals can just kind of graze on their own. I'm not going to have to worry about it. Zone 2, I'm going to have maybe my domestic small animals like chickens and rabbits. Zone 1, I'm going to have my house garden and little paths and flower gardens and honeybees and stuff like that, if you want to have honeybees that close. Or you can put honeybees clear out in zone 3, because you only have to visit them every once a week or less. And so we visit ours, I don't know, a couple times a year. We don't go out and visit our bees too often, and we haven't had any problem with varroa or or colony collapse. Our bees did just leave last year, but when we were harvesting the honey, because they left a ton of honey in there, and we were like, well, why did they leave? Because there weren't bodies all around or anything. They just picked up and left. And we found that there were some waxworms in the hive, and plus mouse, like, it was chewing on one of the frames in there. And so we think that they were just like, well, we can't compete with this, so they took off. But other than that, we've had no real issues with our bees, and they've always been nice and healthy and never had any mite problems. And I think it's because we're not sticking all kinds of nasty chemicals in there on them. So you don't have to, like, it says in the book here, it says zone edges will blur into each other. You don't have to have like a fence between each zone. You just kind of get the idea that in this zone I'm going to do this, and the further out I get from the house, the less I'm going to manage it. And that kind of helps you figure out what you're going to do with each zone. That way you're not wasting energy by walking. You're going to put your, I don't know, garden in zone 4, and you're going to be walking all the way out to zone 4 every single day. Well, that's, if you're walking out there every single day, it's no longer a zone 4. Now it actually is a zone 2. It's just, it's a long ways from the house, which is a waste of energy. So reel it in, bring it closer to the house, and you'll be happier. So after you have your zones, you need to start thinking about sectors. And this is actually going to be the second to last topic that we talk about. The next time we meet, or the next episode, we're going to be talking about energy in the system, and that will finish off our intro to permaculture series. So the last section of this zones is about sector planning. Now, sectors are things you want to, and there's a lot of zones, sectors. Just remember the 4 S's and the 5 E's and the 7 whatevers. There's a lot of stuff to remember, but in sector planning, you pick things that you want to harness and pick things you want to block. I think of that on Happy Gilmore when he's talking to that professional golfer, and he's like, harness good, block bad. That's exactly what this is doing, is you harness the good and you block the bad. In the sectors, you want to be thinking about where is a fire most likely coming from. If the winds usually blow from the west in your area, then if there's a wildfire, if you live in the desert and there's wildfires are frequent, it's going to be coming from the west. So you need to start thinking about what you can do to mitigate fires. If you have winds that come from, strong winds that come from the west, maybe you might plant some tall trees that way, or maybe a good windbreak that will help buffer the wind from your site. Maybe you've got views that you don't want to see. Maybe you've got neighbors that are disgusting. Maybe you've got whatever. So what you're going to do is you're going to plant species in the way so you can't see them, and then try to harness the things you do want. So in the winter you want sun, so you're going to put deciduous trees on the sun side of the house so that in the summertime they're shaded, and in the wintertime the leaves fall off and you get the sunlight. Another thing you can do is you can channel, you can use the things you plant to channel a certain energy or a certain sound or view or something towards your house. So say you have a beautiful mountain. You want to make sure you plant really low plants so that you can see that mountain in the distance all the time. If you have a creek and you want to hear the creek water, bubbling and splashing in the creek, then don't plant a bunch of bushes in the way, or else it'll block the sound. You want to, plant ground covers, grasses, or something low-lying so that it doesn't kill off doesn't block the sound. If you have nosy neighbors, you want to plant a screen of something, some sort of bushes, probably edibles. That way that you can be harvesting food while you're blocking out the annoying neighbors. Also, screens, along the road maybe to block out the road noise. I mean, there's just so many things. I don't know if you could hear that, but a truck just drove by. And speaking of road noise, just really take in. So just one of the takeaway thoughts is to think about every part of the landscape, about the way it looks, what you want to keep, what you want to block. If there's a slope in it, you want to make sure that your water is running the way you want it to run. Energy efficiency is numero uno on a lot of this stuff. And that's why you build this intelligent design so that so that everything can work together by itself, and you have to put in the least amount of effort maintaining it. Now, it's important to put in a lot of effort at the beginning, thinking and building, but you're hoping that it will be a sustainable system. Okay, so our next subject we're going to be talking about is energy cycling, biological resources, natural succession, and diversity in guilds. We won't take too awful long in any one of those, so we can fit it inside the 20-25 minute time frame. But this is such a powerful tool. I shared with you at the very beginning about those sites that have been developed, at the very beginning of our series here, about those sites that have been developed with these skills and these principles. And we can, I don't want to sound too corny, but we can change the world with these sort of things. Just change our own mindset. And once you've done a permaculture design course, then every time you look at a hill or every time you look at someone's land, you're thinking how the water would move down and around this thing, and it would be really cool to put a pond right there, or some sort of feature there, or maybe you could plant some plants that would like the water, and you could make an edge there to increase biodiversity. And anyway, it's just such a powerful principle and powerful tool, and really a powerful design science. So I hope that you've enjoyed this episode, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email us. And you can find all of our contact information at havenhomestead.com. So once again, this has been another episode of the Haven Homestead podcast, where we learn and grow together on our way to living more sustainable lives. Thanks for listening.